Hello, and welcome to this episode of the Worth Watching podcast. Today, our guest is actor Kaiser Johnson, who lives in Hollywood and has a starring role in the upcoming film Bigger Than the Beatles. Check that out on IMDb if you want to learn more about it. It is about the Beach Boys and their involvement with Charles Manson. How are you doing today, Kaiser?
I'm doing great. Thanks, Josiah.
And Kaiser is also a major fan of the Arnold Schwarzenegger, and so we are going to be talking about Arnold Schwarzenegger today because Sabotage is coming out very soon, and so to get everybody pumped for that, we're going to be talking about Arnie, and we're going to be counting down Kaiser's top 5 favorite Arnie movies, and we're going to do a little bit of Arnold Schwarzenegger trivia. Feel free to follow along with that.
All right, this sounds great.
So, tell us a little bit about Sabotage because you clearly know more about this movie than I do.
Well, I'm really excited for Sabotage. I think it's going to be just an awesome film. It's made by the guys who did the writers of Training Day and the director of and writer-director of End of Watch. So sort of in that vein, it's this really gritty, realistic look at this elite DEA task force who then they all get into this sort of bad situation where they don't know who to trust, and sort of it's really, I think, a timely film with what's going on, on our southern border there, and all this sort of stuff that's happening. In California here, we have all sorts of bad stuff happening with two DEA agents and stuff like that all the time, and it looks like there's some really cool people involved with it. Obviously, the guys who are that wrote and directed it, and Arnold looks like he's taking a really serious approach to it. And you've also got guys like Sam Worthington, who I'm not a huge fan of usually. I mean, he's less interesting than watching a 2x4 usually, but looks like he's really gone in a different direction for this. And one of my favorite actresses ever, Muriel Enos from The Killing, she is in this too. And so I'm really excited to see sort of this really gritty, realistic, hard look where Arnold's playing a hard ass, but a realistic hard ass. So I'm really excited for that.
I've never seen Arnold in something that I would brand as a realistic movie.
Right.
So essentially what you're saying is it's like the tortoise scene in Breaking Bad, but if Arnold Schwarzenegger was the tortoise.
Yes, if Arnold Schwarzenegger was Dean Norris's character in Breaking Bad, like that's what this movie's going to be. So told from that perspective of the DEA.
That sounds like fun.
Yeah, it's going to be great.
Fun,
and
but
Dean Norris, I wish Dean Norris was in this because I love him. He's great, and Breaking Bad's awesome.
He looks like a real police officer, and that's he looks like a cop.
And I think that's what they're really going to be doing here is really keeping a lot of realism to everything, and so that's what I'm excited about. I only saw bits and pieces of End of Watch, but if it's anything like what I saw, and then obviously like Training Day, going to be a really intense, really awesome film. So
very cool. I'm going to have to definitely check that out. So on to our topic, we were going to be talking about your top 5 favorite Arnold films of all time.
Yeah.
So what would be your number 5 on that?
Well, number 5, I'd have to start with Commando. Okay. It's not the greatest film of all time, but what it does is it sets up, it invents that genre of just one-man army, huge action stars of the 80s. And
was that the first movie that did that, or?
The first one that I really can think of any, this just guy who is huge and indestructible and it sets the tone for his movies, for Sly's movies.
So it came out before First Blood.
Yeah, I believe it was before First Blood. I'm fairly certain. I can double check on that, but it was I think it was 1980 was Commando, and so I'm sorry, it was 1985 was Commando. Boom. Then when was First Blood?
1982.
So First Blood came first. Okay. But I guess it sets it because First Blood is super dramatic, and Commando opens up that fun action film where there's a guy who's got one-liners every time he dispatches somebody. Right. So Commando just sort of starts that genre of the fun action movie that is just a testosterone fest, which First Blood is to some extent, but at the same time, Sylvester Stallone was also trying to make a serious.
I think the differentiating thing is that First Blood tries really hard to take itself seriously.
Right. Right.
which doesn't age well, whereas Commando knows that it's ridiculous.
Commando clearly does not take itself seriously.
He goes through about 600 rounds with like a 15-round M16 mag at the end of the movie.
I mean, so you've got some awesome scenes like where he's, he puts a Bronco in neutral and rides it down a mountain, or he's picking up phone booths and throwing them. Like, obviously Commando's not taking itself seriously, and that I think is a lot of fun, and it, like I said, sort of sets the tone for a lot of his later films and for Stallone's films, and makes that genre available for people to do. So
very cool.
That earns the number 5 spot on my list.
All right, so what would be your number 4?
Number 4, The Terminator. The first Terminator film is sort of another just really great film in general. I'm sorry, not another great film. It's a great film, unlike Commando. But Commando's not a great film by any stretch of the imagination, but it's a fun film. And then The Terminator, I think, is great because it really sort of starts a new era in just these relentless action films that are sort of action thrillers and stuff. And with, James Cameron, what he always does is tends to, span genres. And so it's fun to see this and just creates this really fascinating story and everything like that. And Arnold, even though he's not actually in it that much, is great, and it launches his career at that point. So that earns a spot on my list as well.
Now, I'm going to have to disagree with you a little bit on Terminator because I saw Terminator 2 first.
Okay.
I love Terminator 2.
Well, that was your first mistake.
Well, okay. Well, forgive me for it then. But then I saw the first Terminator, and I thought that I thought it really was not much of an action film. It was more of a horror thriller.
Okay.
If you think of it, there's really not a lot of genuine like action sequences, so much as just people getting shot and things like that.
Well, there's not like fight sequences and stuff like that, but they're always on the run. And that's something that's interesting is they managed to keep, and they're always isolated, which is something that I think is even when they're in and amongst people. They're still, Michael Biehn and what's her name? Karen. The guy in the ground, both isolated the whole time, and that's something that's always interesting to see in an action film too, and makes it so that the psychological stress is never lets up on them.
Right. I guess what I'm trying to say is I think the movie ages less well than
absolutely. Yeah, no, it's a very dated film. Yeah. And you've got a couple of people in there who can't act their way out of a paper bag,
that's very true. All right, so sorry to derail you. What would be your number 3?
Well, number 3 I would say is True Lies, another James Cameron film, and a great action comedy. It's a little too long. I mean, it could stop about 2/3 of the way through and be fine. But some really funny stuff. Bill Paxton, his shtick really works in this, and Arnold's great, and Jamie Lee Curtis is great. So a really funny movie, a really fun film, and Tom Arnold is hilarious. I laugh every single thing he does the entire movie. So, and a lot of just ridiculous, over the top Cameron-esque action sequences, and I guess it should be Cameron-esque because he's the one who made it. But
I'm noticing a trend here about James Cameron films. I wonder what we have in store.
Yes.
All right, so what would be your number 2?
Number 2 is a tie between Predator and Pumping Iron, and I figured it was okay to have a tie with Pumping Iron in there because it's not playing a character.
Doesn't count per se because it's a pseudo documentary sort of thing.
Right, exactly. So those tie for number 2, and I'll explain why. Okay, so obviously, I mean, everyone can understand that Predator is just an awesome film, and I mean, just the world that it creates, and you've got all these great action. It was like Expendables before Expendables, where you've got these huge guys who are action stars from different arenas and stuff. You've got a serious actor who's also in action films in Carl Weathers. You've got Jesse Ventura, and you've got these other guys who have been in other war films and stuff like that. And so it's a sort of a who's who of that era, which is a lot of fun. And then you've got these great, this great, absolutely just brutal, horrifying character.
Yeah.
It's been such a disappointment to see any other Predator films after this, but to see just how ingenious, where all these guys, their brawn and their guns can't save them, and Arnold has to
slather himself in mud and scream into the night.
Spoiler alert for those of you who haven't seen the film, but that he really has to use his brains, which is something that he doesn't necessarily get to do a lot in films. Usually his he just sort of brawls his way through a lot of stuff, but he's really got to have a certain amount of strategy and learn about this monster that he's fighting and stuff like that. So it's a lot of fun, and I love. I'm a sucker for like adventure movies, and I think this
you should have been on our Death of Adventure Movies podcast episode. You would have had
I actually listened to your Adventure Movies podcast episode and enjoyed that a lot. But I like that Predator takes some of the some interesting thematic elements and just sort of set dressing elements from these adventure films and uses them in there.
And you brought up that Carl Weathers is in it, and every time I think of Predator, I forget that he's in there.
Yeah.
And then when I watch the movie, I'm like, oh yeah, Carl Weathers is in it, and he's great in it too. Like I don't know why I never associate him with it. I guess because I always think Rocky. But he's absolutely great in the movie.
He was in the Sylvester Stallone movie. You forget that, he's in Predator. But who can forget that scene when they first show up and Arnold and him go? He goes, "Dylan, you son of a bitch," and then they arm wrestle standing.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So why would pumping iron also be?
Pumping iron,
from the fact that like no one doesn't want to work out after watching it.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's an inspiring film. It's a really funny film too in a lot of ways, because you get to see all these sort of larger than life personalities,
right?
And it's an endearing film too, with especially like with Lou Ferrigno, the stuff that he's going through and his experience, contrasted with Arnold's. And it's our first introduction to Arnold Schwarzenegger and to a world that people really weren't familiar with at the time, of the world of professional bodybuilding. They were, instead of it being a mainstream thing, it was few hundred people who knew about it in any given place in the country. And
right, and that's something that I think a lot of people take for granted about it.
Mm-hmm.
These days is that they see, oh, it's just bodybuilding, whereas back then that was like this weird fringe thing that people weren't doing.
Right, exactly. Yeah, and so I mean, it's this one contingent of guys out in Venice, California, and maybe a couple of other guys in Brooklyn, but whereas now it's just that's sort of accepted, and the idea of just huge guys and stuff like that. But I think it's interesting because it sort of brings that to the forefront, and it's sort of what allowed these. I guess I've already sort of pinned this on some other stuff, but it allowed big action movies to take place, and is
it
because
made everyone comfortable with that sort of aesthetic in an action movie.
Right. So, and I think it's just like I said, it's a really fun, really fascinating, really funny film, and it's really inspirational. Makes you want to achieve whatever you can achieve after that, because. Arnold sets his mind to doing stuff in that movie, and he does it. And then he talks about wanting to be an actor, and then he became the highest paid movie star of all time. So like you set your mind to doing something and then you do it, and that's inspiring about that too. So
very cool. All right, so what would be your number one top favorite Arnold movie of all time?
Well, I'll give you a guess on this, but I should probably preface for your listeners that as bizarre as this may sound, I have not seen Total Recall or Kindergarten Cop, so please forgive me that those are not on the list. I know that they probably should be, depending on who you talk to. But so what do you think?
I'm pretty sure your favorite Arnold movie of all time is Junior. I think we can.
Oh, no. Jingle All the Way.
Yep,
no,
exactly.
No, it's Terminator 2. Terminator 2, I think, is just that's everything great about Arnold, all in one spot. Great action, great stuff. Okay, you have two or three sort of sickeningly sweet moments at the end, but the rest of it is.
I wouldn't say it's sickeningly sweet. I think it ties the movie together.
I know now why you cry.
but I know I never could.
Because that's so much better than pipe down.
No, but that's the whole point. Is that's him dispatching a villain, not trying to say something endearing. And
I think the ending scene is important.
It's a powerful scene, which is.
Is anyone ever going to say that James Cameron was a phenomenal dialogue writer?
No, I don't think he'll ever be accused of that. But I mean, it's one of my favorite films, period. And really, again, he takes the world that he's sort of set up in the first Terminator film and takes it to a really cool new place. And you've got all these great performances and all these great cameos. Linda Hamilton.
There you go. That's her name.
Plays not Karen anything. I was thinking, I don't know. Linda Hamilton, who plays Sarah Connor, and she. Whereas she was, sort of juvenile and silly in the first one, she's really great in this film. And you've got, these great characters played. I mean, Edward Furlong is great as the little kid, and Arnold Schwarzenegger is obviously ridiculous. Robert Patrick is awesome. Xander Berkeley's got a great couple of scenes in there. And
I love Xander Berkeley and everything that he's in. I loved him in 24.
Yeah.
I loved him in Apollo 13. He's
Attica.
I forgot he was in that. Yeah, he's great.
He's just this great deadpan stuff that suits everything really well for this. And the guy, I mean, talk about scenes. For people who haven't seen it, close your ears. But I mean, you should see it because you're dumb. But this, like the scene that happens in the Cyberdyne headquarters and stuff, with the head scientist there. I mean,
I don't know the actor's name, but he was phenomenal.
Oh my gosh, ridiculous!
Yeah,
so
and
good.
One of the greatest, gun action sequences of all time.
Yeah, and then it ends with one of the most sort of heart-wrenching, inspiring moments with a character that you've only met about 7 minutes earlier.
Right, and it's done. Here's what I appreciate about that scene: is it's done in a way that doesn't feel forced, where it's like, oh, here's that character we have to introduce just to kill off to make you feel sorry for him. It's done in a very genuine way, in a very appreciable way.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. So Terminator 2, one of my favorite movies of all time, and definitely my favorite Schwarzenegger film. I hope Sabotage will supplant it, or at least tie with it. But those are my favorite Schwarzenegger films.
I think that is a very good list, and I will agree absolutely wholeheartedly on the Terminator 2 pick, because goodness gracious, I love Terminator 2.
Yeah, what a great film.
Yeah, definitely, and it's a pity that they made any more after it.
I intentionally have not watched 3 or 4.
Oh, you've managed to entirely avoid those?
Yes.
Oh, wow. Well, I envy you greatly, so you're very lucky. All right, so that brings us to our Arnold Schwarzenegger trivia. Now, some of this is about him specifically. Some of this is about movies that he was in. Some of these are true or false. Some of these are fill in the blank. So if you want to play along at home, just try to answer these before Kaiser does, and we'll see how many you get right.
I'll try to give you, depending on how hard these are, I'll either try to give you a second so that you can answer it too, viewers at home, or if they're really hard, you may just hear me not knowing what the answer is. So we'll see.
If you get a single one of these wrong, you lose your Arnold Schwarzenegger fan card, by the way.
Oh, dear. Oh, man, this is a lot riding on the line here.
All right, so we're going to start with true or false. Arnold Schwarzenegger's voice in the film Hercules of New York was dubbed over.
Absolutely. That is 100% true.
Good for you. 1 for 1.
Yeah. They couldn't understand what he was saying. And he was, fun fact of trivia there, he was actually credited as Arnold Strong because they didn't think anyone would be able to spell Schwarzenegger.
Very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Which of his films was the first film to be advertised in space?
Advertised in space?
As in they painted an advertisement for the film on the side of a rocket and shot it into low Earth orbit.
Total Recall?
You would think, but no, it's Last Action Hero, actually.
Really?
Yeah.
That one didn't make my list because it's not a very good film, but I do enjoy it.
Yeah, it's fun, and I think it was a little bit ahead of its time when it came out, so people didn't quite appreciate it for what it was trying to do.
Well, it was making fun of films that had just come out the previous year.
Right.
But it doesn't do it in such an on-the-nose way as a lot of parodies do, so
sure.
Yeah.
But I think there was actually a bit of a unfortunate story involving the advertising, if I remember correctly. Don't quote me on this.
Okay.
That the rocket launch was supposed to coincide 2 days before the film came out, but then, as things with NASA do, it was delayed, and so the movie opened, flopped, and then like 3 weeks later they launched this rocket.
Oh, no.
Space.
Oh, gosh.
I got that from cracked.com, by the way, so we'll find out if that's actually true or not.
Okay.
Okay, so true or false, The Expendables 3 will be his 80th film.
That sounds way too high. I don't think that's true.
You are correct. That is false. I made that up. I think he's been in like 56 films.
Yeah.
All right. Name the year that he became...
appearances.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Name the year that he became a U.S. citizen.
Ooh, jeez, I'm gonna get this wrong. When did he become a U.S. citizen? 1981.
Oh, you are so close. 1983.
Darn, it was gonna be my first guess. Shoot. I think he and Franco Colombo, I think they became citizens the same day. I think they became citizens together.
I believe that.
Joe Weider helped them in the process. So it's a bodybuilding publisher. So,
true or false? He had to tone down his workout when filming Conan the Barbarian, or before filming it, because his arms and chest were so big that he couldn't hold a sword properly.
I believe that's true. Yes,
that is absolutely true.
Yeah. He lost some weight for Stay Hungry too, which was one of his other first films.
Okay.
So,
all right. So let's see here. Okay, who was name the actor who was originally considered for the role of the Terminator before Arnold Schwarzenegger was cast?
Oh shoot. Well, Arnold was first considered for Kyle Reese, but then
that's true. But the actor, I'll give you a hint here. They were originally thinking that the Terminator should be someone very nondescript who could blend in very easily. Like that was because you know how they claim that's the Terminator's purpose is to blend in, and then they have a 6'2", 300-pound guy playing him. Yeah. So that's just a little hint for you.
Nondescript. It's 1982.
84.
84. Dustin Hoffman. I don't know.
That would have been awkward.
I have no idea.
No, the answer is Mel Gibson.
Mel Gibson. Interesting.
Yep.
Okay.
That would have been an odd movie. Which film of his was the first film to have over $100 million budget?
Okay. I'm gonna guess True Lies.
Nope.
Nope. Let me guess again. Don't tell me. Don't tell me. Let me guess again. First, Terminator 2?
Yep, that's right. Okay. I don't know if you just heard me say that, but
oh no, I didn't.
Okay. I'll give it to you then. Well, I won't give it to you because you still got it wrong the first time.
I still got it wrong.
All right. Okay, and this is the last one because we're gonna see if we can get this. True or false? Arnold Schwarzenegger has had surgical reconstruction to move his jaw backward. So
yes, he did.
Gosh darn it, you knew that. Okay.
Yeah, well. Yeah, he had a worse underbite before, and it was gonna potentially cause all sorts of problems for him. So he had his jaw moved back, and it also there was an aesthetic component, I'm sure, as well. But it was gonna cause him trouble later in life if he didn't get it fixed.
You know what that surgical procedure is called? Because no one cares. A genioplasty.
Genioplasty. Okay.
Yep. Actually, no, fine. Last trivia question. What is Arnold Schwarzenegger's self-proclaimed lifelong goal?
Oh, man. Become president of the United States.
No. This is not a serious question, by the way, because it's not Conan. It's not the Terminator or anything like that. It is to own his own tank.
Well, I think that's a good lifetime goal for all of us.
I think that should be everybody's lifetime goal. Is to own your own tank.
Absolutely.
And crush things with it.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you very much for being on the show today, Kaiser. Again, everyone.
My pleasure.
If you want to check out updates on his new movie, Bigger Than the Beatles, check it out on IMDb.com, and you can find out more. When does that come out again?
It'll be out, I think, June right now. But you can stay tuned for all sorts of updates by following me on Twitter at Kaiser Johnson.
Fantastic. All right, thank you for being on the show. Everybody tune in next week for another episode of the Worth Watching podcast, and we will see you